What would happen if you could stop worrying so much about what your team was doing all day and instead focus in on what you're supposed to be doing to move your business forward? Sounds like a dream, but right now you're living the nightmare of having to overcoach, over-handhold, and over-check in on your team's work. Let's put an end to that and instead roll out super clear 5-hour work plans, drum beats, and more of my signature tools that drive accountability and self-sufficiency deep into your team. All you have to do is join a Leadership Lab program, and I'll help you turn your team troubles into triumphs. You'll be learning and growing alongside some peers that will become valuable business friends. So why not go beyond this podcast and join us? It could be the smartest thing you do this year. Book a call with me and see what program would best fit you over at the website, stackingyourteam.com/programs. Hello, leader. Do you ever wonder how to set up KPIs for your team so they know exactly how the daily operation directly impacts everything? If you do, you're not alone, because small business owners, even the ones who have great teams, can feel disappointed that they're the only person who's keeping their eyes on the metrics. This happens because your team doesn't know what the metrics are, how they're measured, and what they can do if they notice any drift off targets. So I thought I'd pull up and freshen up an on-air coaching call that was published a while back with the print services shop owner. She wanted to get some guidance on how to introduce her team to KPIs, those key performance indicators, so that they could directly be involved in measuring, tracking, celebrating, and then action planning, all the while keeping her highest performing team members motivated. By the way, it's been a long while since I published an on-air coaching call. So in case you're wondering, guests who apply for and then join me for an on-air coaching call agree to have their session aired because I don't charge them. If you're interested in this, you can always DM me on Instagram where I'm at Stacking Your Team. So come on and join in on this conversation all about helping your team to stop thinking like employees and start thinking like business owners with metrics. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast. Thanks for tuning in and following your curiosity to learn and honor your personal conviction to be the best leader you can be. On this podcast, you won't hear a bunch of theories presented by academics who haven't been in a workplace in years or ever, and you'll not hear from executives who are flush with capital, people, and pool tables in their cafeteria telling you how to build team culture. Nope. Why? Because you are a small business owner and you've built something great out of nothing. And through it all, you've learned that you need a team, but not just any team. I'm your host, Shelli Warren. I've led winning teams in retail, innovative technical teams at a Fortune 50 corporation for decades, not-for-profit boards, and in online business, and helped many remote teams win at work. And I can tell you that no one escapes team troubles, including me. These days, I'm the CEO of Stacking Your Team, where I teach and develop tools for small business owners so they can attract, retain, and develop their teams so the founder can step out of her day-to-day operation. I'm so happy you're here because we all know that the people side of running your business is often the most difficult, and the team that got you here may not be the team that gets you there. So come on, let's jump in to today's episode. Today's on-air coaching guest is Christine Walsh, an incredible business owner who runs a long-standing print shop that makes custom graphics and prints for a variety of clients, including the celebrity kind. Christine became a member of the Leadership Lab, and it was a delight to assist her in developing her team and her leadership abilities. Over her now 16 years at the helm of the print shop, she continues to make a considerable impact. Oh, and by the way, she's now grown her high-performing team at Alpha Graphics in Baltimore, Maryland to 12 people. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast, Christine.
Thank you, Shelli. It's wonderful to be here and be talking to you. I'm very honored. Thank you.
It's so lovely to hear that people are applying the concepts and the tools into their business. I mean, that's the whole purpose of me putting together each episode. It's nice to get evidence that people actually are.
I take notes all the time on yours.
Aww.
Yours is seriously the best. A lot of it's fluff, but yours, I mean, you get right down to the nitty gritty, which the 5 R's.
Yeah.
I had an employee that was ADD and didn't realize it.
Oh.
When I spelled it out with the 5 R's, we went into our evaluation and she's like, I never told you this, but I am ADD. And having it listed out like this helps me so much. And it literally flipped the way she worked with me anyway.
Yeah.
She was my aunt. And it was like a new person. And I couldn't believe that was all I needed to do was, I think everybody reads my mind. Doesn't every business owner?
It's so true. Thank you for telling me that. That's wonderful. And I'm so happy to hear that that tool really helped accelerate that one team member.
It did. And it actually helped my other admin that took her place because it gave her tasks and what her responsibilities were. Just because when this print shop, it was basically me and one other person. And then we've really grown over the years. And the people that I bring on, I don't really explain to them. And I never thought about it, what their responsibilities and roles were.
Mm-hmm.
But to have you list it out and then me type it out the way I was supposed to do it, just clarified so much for everybody, really. Not just that one person, of course, but everybody too. Because it's like we go to the renewal date.
Sure.
Look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, did you do all the things that we listed out here? Or are you doing all the things that we listed out? So, yeah, very, very helpful. Yeah, I love what you do. So thank you.
Tell us, you have a team, you have a full-blown team, and tell me about your workspace. How do you have your workspace set up?
So right now we are in an old 1890s, there used to be an envelope factory, which is kind of interesting. And we've got about 3,000 square feet, which we're growing out of. And I have a team of 7. We are kind of scrunched in a small space, and we're utilizing every square inch of it with our equipment. I have 2 junior designers as well as production assistants. I have a large format coordinator. He does all the large format printing, so he'll coordinate all the big graphics. So it's ready for installation, and he'll do color matching and all that good stuff. And then we have an executive assistant, and we were getting ready to hire a project coordinator to coordinate all of the installations and to do the follow-up with the client follow-up and to help me with the things that I needed help on, the reporting I have to do because I am certified minority-owned. So I have to do a lot of the MBE, Minority Business Enterprise, reporting to the government or to the state, wherever I'm doing the project. And that takes up a lot of time. So this person was going to be doing all of that as well. So we have a very diverse team. I don't outsource any of it. It's all done in-house. Mm-hmm. And, the only thing we outsource is finishing, like foiling or special die cutting or embossing or something like that.
Tell me, Christine, what looks like help to you today?
So every day is different. And I've told my team, what I say today may not be what I say tomorrow.
Sure.
It's navigating through that. It's making sure that I keep them happy. I keep them busy. This is the best team I've ever had in the 13 years I've owned this company. I can go away for a month and I know that they've done everything and they're doing everything they can to keep the business going, almost like it was their own. I want to support them. Mm-hmm. And my other help for today was creating KPIs. I'm just having a very difficult time creating KPIs for my team.
I'm excited about this because I loved how you first started talking about how you're communicating with your team. And I want to remind you and our listeners that it is very much okay to position yourself in front of your team with this little phrase. It's one of my favorites. It's when we say, based on what I know today, here's what our next best step will be. Mm. And by just saying that to your team, and it could be saying it every week, you could be saying it halfway through the week. What you're explaining to your team is that things are changing so rapidly and fresh information is being shared so rapidly that part of your role as the CEO and business owner is to stay on top of that and to try and actually stay out in front of it. So what you're doing is you're teaching your team to be agile. You're actually teaching them to be able to think on their feet and not get bent out of shape when the plan on Monday is changed on Thursday. What you're really teaching them is to be able to deke in and around, like if they're a hockey player, they're able to deke in and around their opponents on the ice and be able to see that, okay, things are changing rapidly, but boy, Christine is really working hard to stay out in front of it. And as she has new information, she's coming and sharing that with us.
That's good advice.
And what you'll also find is that people they'll start to coach each other because inevitably there will be people on your team that can really roll with the punches. Mm-hmm. And it's not a big deal for them. But then again, you'll have people on your team that are really uncomfortable with change and they love routine. They love predictability. So then what ends up happening is you'll have those team members that really are more agile. They'll start to coach each other as a collective team to calm people down, to remind them about what the current focus is, and to be able to encourage them that, whatever gets thrown at you and your team, you're going to be able to handle it.
Wow. Thank you. That's great advice. And yes, I would say that they're relying more on each other than they are relying on me, because sometimes the day doesn't end at 5 and sometimes the week doesn't end on Friday. Mm-hmm. When the work comes in, we got to be here and work. And they were okay with that. So I said, it may be a Saturday and a Sunday. If something comes in that's due Monday, we got to do it. Yep. Okay.
It sounds like you have a high-performing team. And the best high-performing teams are the ones that are self-sufficient. Those ones where you can literally hand the keys of your business over to them for an amount of time. And they're really going to run that business like it was their own. And so it sounds like you've really stacked a wonderful team there. Okay, well, let's talk about KPIs. So those key performance indicators, and tell me, how are you tracking things today? Do you have a dashboard? Do you have a spreadsheet? Tell me whose eyes are on these metrics today and what tools are you using today?
Well, it's supposed to be my eyes on these metrics. And I was having a very hard time, I guess, navigating, if that's the right word, where to put everything, where to put this dashboard, and what am I looking at? Which is why I was going to bring on this project coordinator to kind of help me do all of that. And what was the most important thing to look at? For me as a business owner, I think it's my P&L and my balance sheet and my accounts receivable and payables. That is my dashboard. Yep. But I need to think about the employees. Mm-hmm. What is their dashboard? Mm-hmm. And what do they need to be thinking about? And that's when I started, through our weekly production meetings, started saying, yeah, I'll get you the KPIs. I'll get you the KPIs. I have yet to get them the KPIs because they're client facing. They deal with, the client phone calls, the client emails, the client, file issues, any delivery issues or whatever. So where do I measure? How do I measure that? And what would be a good place to start with them?
Well, let's think about this as a true production. Think of yourself as you are like a mini factory here. You're producing these incredible graphics and prints, and you have a team that's running a department. And within that department, there's various departments. So you have, not only do you have the actual machinery that's being operated, but there's the whole setup and tooling of machinery. Then there's finishing of it. There's packaging, shipping. There's all of those factory floor type activities that are happening at your shop. But then up front, there's all the upfront work. So it's the proposals and proofs that are sent out, and it's the contract agreements, and all of those things get done up front before the job actually hits the production plan. Correct. And then before it gets teed up onto your equipment. So how I like to think about KPIs is we look at what are the most important things in your business to keep your eye on. And for many people, they think, or they can tell themselves a story that the things they need to be keeping an eye on the most is number of clients or number of projects completed this month or this week or this quarter. And although those things are important, what will really accelerate your results is when you look deeper at the current production plan that you have right now, and you look to track metrics of excellence. And what I mean by metrics of excellence are things like percentage of times the specs were met. Because we know when we don't meet specs, it causes rework.
Yes.
Which then causes scrap, which is essentially,
waste.
Yeah, which is just another way of saying we're just going to flush some more cash down the toilet, right? Like you want to be able to make sure that the metrics of excellence that you're looking at are metrics that every single person on your team understands. They understand the importance of it and they understand the role they play in hitting that metric. So to look at the number of times your specs were met on a job, right? Ideally, we want that to be 100% of the time.
Yes.
But we also know that sometimes there's variances involved. Sometimes there's lack of communication. Sometimes the quote has misinformation on it. You know, there's lots of things that can get broken down in the line of communication, but we really want to make sure that there are workflows in place so that the client's specs are met 100% of the time.
Okay.
Because that will reduce the amount of rework you have, which means it's going to reduce the amount of scrap materials that you have, which directly impacts the bottom line. Other things that would be wonderful to be able to track, like those metrics of excellence, is the actual equipment itself. So nothing's worse in a factory floor situation is when everyone's geared up to go do their work and to fire up their equipment and get the job done, and the equipment fails.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible here.
Right? So that's called unplanned downtime, right? I mean, we have planned downtime, which is when we would have our maintenance sequence activities on a drumbeat at a set amount of time, usually based on the manufacturer's recommendations or based on the amount of usage that you have for particular machinery. But that unplanned downtime can be such a factor in terms of your profits and your revenue that's coming in, because if your equipment is not in pristine condition to be able to run, then you're not meeting, like forget trying to meet the specs. You can't even turn the machine on. So let's have a look at making sure that your planned downtime activities. So that's when you're going in and you're inspecting your equipment. That's when you're going in and doing any kind of cleaning, any kind of inspections, any kind of lubrications. If you have certain components on your equipment that need to be replenished, then let's have a look at that. And let's make sure that very, very few times does anyone ever go to want to start a job and the equipment is not running. So we like to call that finding and fixing defects, because when you find a defect and you fix the defect and you eliminate the defect, right off the face of the earth, then that is really going to reduce your unplanned downtime. So let's have your team track unplanned downtime and also track planned downtime, because often when you have planned downtime that is not being executed upon, well, we just know it leads to more things that get broken and things that don't work well.
Right. I never even thought about that. That's great.
So those are metrics of excellence. Other things that I really encourage your team to have a look at is damage. So when I say damage, I'm thinking about when you're receiving your materials from your suppliers, how much of what you're receiving in is damaged? And do you have a system in place to be reimbursed and replenished with good quality materials?
Gotcha. Yeah, we've had that a few times, and especially with paper, and you're trying to put it through a press, and if the least bit of a curve or wrinkle in it, it will just jam up the presses, and you'll never be able to run that job on that paper. So yes, that is extremely important. But I would say even diving deeper, opening up the package when they come in to see that it's not damaged.
Yeah, so it's all those standard operating procedures of how are your materials being delivered to you? Mm-hmm. And then once they arrive at your shop, how are they being offloaded? And then how are they being stored?
Okay.
Because those three touch points is where the damage happens, right? So the damage can happen literally coming from the supplier, however they load it. what happens during the journey of it being delivered to you. Right. And then once it arrives, it's the handling or the mishandling of those raw materials and how they get transferred over into whatever kind of a storage setup that you have. And then when you go to retrieve it, to bring it over to the equipment and then set it up to use it. All those touch points can create damage. So we want to track where most often is the damage occurring. And if it's occurring in-house, then that evidence that your workflows and your standard operating procedures are not being followed 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. And if the damage is happening at the supplier, then that's evidence for you to be able to give that feedback to the supplier and ask them, what's their action steps to, first of all, I need a replacement ASAP. And second of all, how am I going to get reimbursed by the lost time?
Yes.
Right? Because it's one thing to say, how unfortunate. Your material arrived at your shop damaged. I'll get a replacement out to you by tomorrow morning. Okay, that might be wonderful customer service in your industry, but in the end of the day, it's actually impacting your lost time. You're unable to meet the project schedule that you had set out for that customer of yours.
Right, exactly. And our timelines are very strict, especially in this day and age right now.
Mm-hmm. So now you're in a predicament because now you have to call up the client and tell them that there's a delayed delivery on their project. And that's unfortunate. So having your team track damage and where the points of damage most often is happening, that would be one thing that I would encourage your team to track. And then the other one that I would love to see them track is inventory on hand, right? So inventory on hand, there's a lot of money tied up in inventory on hand. And so what we want to get them to be thinking more is just in time inventory.
In time. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Right. So what we want to have happen here is your team needs to really understand the workflow and the bill of materials required. Like, what are all the materials required to be able to execute and deliver on this particular job? And if there's moments where we can have the supplier hold our materials until we actually need them, let them keep them. Right. Let them store them.
Right. Okay.
Versus taking up valuable space. You've got, what'd you say? You got 3,000 square feet of space in your shop. So space and storage is a premium. So we want to make sure that the inventory that you have on hand are things that you are frequently using. And then you also want to be able to have your inventory on hand to be available in your shop, already inspected, already proven to be perfect materials for you to use to start that job within a few days of the job needing to be run. And if it feels safer to have it within a week, then go for a week. But what I want to encourage your team to get away from is stockpiling inventory that they don't need yet, that's taking up valuable space, and it actually becomes a hindrance to their effectiveness. When you have a small workspace where there's so many bodies in the room and there's so much equipment in the room and there's all these materials in the room, it can really hinder some people's flow and energy and just their effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. You are correct. Yeah. And I didn't even think of adding damage to our SOPs. That thought never even occurred to me.
Damage can be just a real cash suck. Like, it can really just suck a lot out of your cash and your reserves, because you're not the type of business owner that's just buying things to buy things, right? Like, you're buying things because you need that in order to be able to produce the brilliant designs that you want to be able to deliver to your clients. So having remnants laying around. So that's another thing when we talk about scrap. Another thing that your team should really look about is how often are they repurposing those scrap materials?
That's a big problem here because, we use big rolls, 64-inch rolls to print those big, beautiful graphics. Mm-hmm. And there's so much waste that I tell them, please keep that scrap because we might have something smaller to run. But that starts taking up so much space. That is an issue here already.
Yeah, especially when space is already a constraint. So another thing that you could look at is who would want some of this scrap, and can I sell it to them?
Oh, that's true.
So it could be another design shop. It could be a college that teaches design.
That is a good thought. we have a lot of art colleges here that use some of the same printers I use. So that is a great idea.
Yeah, you could sell that back to them. I see the other potential customers of yours is whomever owns your equipment. So that equipment manufacturer, they often need scrap to be able to verify their new equipment that's being produced and manufactured at their site.
That's true too.
Right. So you could sell them back your scrap that they would use during their verification runs prior to shipping out a new piece of equipment to a new client.
That is a great idea. I never even thought of that one. That is wonderful.
And so you actually are creating employees that think like business owners. And I don't know if there's a business owner out there that wouldn't want that, right? Like that's one of the biggest complaints I hear is how do I get my employees to stop thinking like employees and start thinking like business owners? And this is one way in which we can help them transition over into that new mindset is by giving them actual projects and ownership areas that directly impact the bottom line. And they can start to see the role they play in the longevity of the business.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I do. I love that. That's perfect.
So now that you have some KPIs for them to track, how are we going to track them? Because, I mean, it's not so much about how you're tracking them or what tool or what platform. It's about, are you tracking them and are they on a drumbeat? So whether you have a whiteboard that you literally just draw a grid and you put your KPIs down and then each person on the team goes, grabs the marker and goes and updates the metric, because there's something about when a team member grabs the marker and literally goes and updates the number, the sense of ownership is so accelerated versus the CEO updating the dashboard.
Correct.
There's a very different mindset with that. So it could be a whiteboard. It could be a flip chart. It could be take a scrap, one of your big pieces of scrap that you don't think anyone wants to buy, and turn that into your dashboard.
Right.
Grab a piece of wall space with one of your big pieces of scrap and just trick that out so that it's literally one of those interactive moments during your team meetings where there's a visual there, the markers are there, the results are there. You can talk about what's going to happen next, because there's no point in creating KPIs and not doing anything with them. There's really not. We need to get that on a drumbeat so that you are talking about those KPIs in your team meetings. And then I also know that you're a fan of the 5-hour work plan.
Yes, I am.
So to up-level your 5-hour work plans, you really want to take those KPIs that you've delegated out to certain members on your team, and you've delegated it to them because it's a perfect match for their role. That's why they are the owner of that KPIs, because it's a perfect match for their role and those 3 key deliverables. Then that's really how you're going to hold even more accountability for these KPIs, because now they understand, oh, it's not just a board that I'm going and updating for a team meeting. This is actually part of what I get paid to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it makes them feel like they are contributing to the bottom line when all these things are met. And, KPIs are across the board have, the check marks in them, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It does make them feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, it makes them feel a whole lot better. It makes them feel like they really are contributing to the business. It increases the level of respect and credibility amongst teams, right? So when you see a team member who is really accelerating within their role and their goals are getting met, and, they're more often in the green than they are in the yellow, that really uplifts the morale on the whole team. There's something to be said about healthy competition amongst team members.
Yep.
I'm a fan of that. Healthy competition coincided with healthy acknowledgement and genuine celebration of people who are hitting their goals. And you're going to be creating all of that because you're going to have this visual right there in your shop where you're talking about it on a drumbeat in your team meetings. It's transferred over into their 5-hour work plans. You're talking about it during your one-to-ones. It's coming up in their performance reviews, and everyone's celebrating the fact that people have a focus. And even though the focus this month might change next month, those KPIs are what's creating the predictability for your team.
Yes, I see that. Now, in your opinion, Would you suggest that these KPIs change over time? You add in more KPIs, or how does that work?
Well, as you're just introducing KPIs, the whole concept of this to your team, I would stick to those KPIs that are so intuitive for them. Okay. Because they're literally, like when you say to them, when you talk to them about damage, light bulbs are going to go off in all of their heads when you talk to them about damage. When you talk to them about unplanned downtime and planned downtime, again, those light bulbs are going to go off for them. They're really going to start to see, oh, wow, jeepers. Yeah, those are things that we should be paying attention to. So those KPIs, I would start with them. And then I would set an expectation with each of them that said, over the next few weeks, as we're focusing in on tracking these metrics of excellence, come and tell me by the end of the month about one additional KPI that you would like to track because you believe it's significant.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea. I'm writing all this down too, Shelli.
So then what'll happen there is you've inspired them and you've sparked something in them to really be thinking more like business owners. And as they noodle on this concept and as they start to see that this isn't a flavor of the month for you, KPIs are a thing. We're going to be talking about it in every team meeting. It's going to be right up there on the wall. We're going to be monitoring our progress. They will start to realize about other things that are important too. And then the other thing you can do is as certain KPIs have consistency of being in the green, like quarter on quarter, year on year, once it becomes so entrenched in just how you do work, you could shift those KPIs over into something that you're only now monitoring every quarter. Oh. But I would only encourage you to do that if the results are rock solid and it's so consistency. It's just, putting your shoes on every morning.
Okay. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That adds a lot. That almost this is glue for me with them. This is good glue.
Well, I'm happy that this is all encouraging for you so tell me, what are your thoughts when you think about rolling this out to your team? How do you think they're going to receive it?
I think they'll receive it well. I think it will give them a purpose because right now it's been so shaky and unstable that I think this will make them feel like I'm still a part of this team. I'm not going anywhere. Even though I may be working remotely, she still considers me, an intricate and important part of the team. Because giving them KPIs, I think, is uplifting. It's, I don't know, what's the word I want?
Well, it can be very motivating for people.
Motivating. That's the word. Yes, yes. It's motivating. And I think that will help, especially during this crazy time we're in.
Yeah, those KPIs are really going to add some stability and some predictability for your team. Even though your customers may change, the production schedule may change week on, those upsets in their day-to-day normal operation, those things may change a lot over the next few weeks, even the next few months. But their focus on those metrics of excellence is really what's going to give them the ability to calm down, stay focused, know what the most important thing that they need to be keeping their eye on. And then it's also going to be great for them to start to monitor their progress and start to see, how much of an impact they're learning. And just when they start to see the results improve, it can be very, very motivating.
Oh, it can be, because I've told them that, the bottom line affects everything. It affects the fact that if I can pay for health insurance or continue to or raises, benefits, just extra benefits that I offer here, all that stuff. And maybe when they see that, okay, I've been able to save at least $120 or whatever number it is, who knows, maybe we can work that into a profit per employee, something like that. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad idea to think about either.
Yeah, sure. All of these things are really part of what I like to call a retention strategy, right? Yes. These are all the things that are really helping that person feel inclusive, feeling seen, feeling heard, and feeling like a key player on the team.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for coming and joining me on the podcast today and having a wonderful conversation about something I don't often get a chance to talk about, which is factory floor operations, production, KPIs, all of those fun things for me. It's a blast to be able to chat with you today.
Thank you. And I appreciate all your advice and your knowledge that you have been able to partake unto me. Thank you very much.
If you'd like some help developing people to step up and become leaders for your small business, why not consider enrolling them into the Leadership Lab Team Leader program? They'll get very relevant on-demand training and a resource library designed to help them excel as highly valued team members. They'll also have access to our private community for real-time support, a quarterly live training call, and monthly drop-in Q&A calls with me, all at a very affordable price. You know that the people side of running your business is often the hardest, so why not get some quality help and move into this year being better prepared for more growth instead of dealing with team turnover, disappointments, and overpaying for mediocre performance. I'm here to help you. You can get all the details and book a call with me over at the website at stackingyourteam.com. Leadership can be exciting, challenging, and lonely at times. So don't go it alone. Let me help you create the team and the leadership structure that you've been craving. So until next time, remember, if you have a dream, you need a team. So let's get stacking yours today.